was in the scenario. He was in he was in this, he was giving this scenario where his 2-year-old, or maybe his younger child, was crying uncontrollably, and Russell was like, he's like, I literally offered my child chocolate. He's like, would you stop crying if I had chocolate? And he's like, and he was laughing because he's like, chocolate was my first addiction. And this is a person who has real addiction. So it's not like a fun, like, I like chocolate. It was like, chocolate was my first addiction, which led to like many. So anyways, the cool thing is like Gabor Mate like breaks Russell Brand's behavior down in that scenario, and basically was like, why? And it ultimately, so one half of it is like, the reason that you're not okay with your child being sad in that moment and you feel like you have to solve it is like, you're still a child. Like, what, you're an adult could hold the sadness of a child without having to solve it and without having it become personal.
That's brilliant. Do you have that podcast? I need to listen.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Send that one along for sure.
Yeah, it's really good. But, I did just do a fresh reread on chapter 3. I'm kind of itching to get to the suicidal thought. So, but I wanted to pump the brakes because you wrote chapter 3, and I think it's a good chapter. And so if you're up for it, I'd like to talk about it today. And I think I have. I think I have questions that might hopefully will be challenging and interesting. And but do you mind, just for context, like talking a little bit about chapter 3 and what it's about? And
yeah, should we?
Yeah, we should do that.
Let's do it. So ready, one. Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. Chapter 3, entitled The Trustless, the Concept, and the Tool. So the core of the bulk of the chapter is using a scenario that you had with your daughter to sort of frame how it is that you would talk to her about something. So I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it's in there, but I think it's fun because it's a true story. And Anna knows that I tell everybody about it, and Anna's in the book, and she's what, 13 now, right?
Yeah.
I distinctly remember walking down the stairs, and she's holding our beloved yellow lab, right? Petting the furry ear, and it's lifeless. And, I teach this stuff, philosophy dad, but it was so intriguing to have her look up, and she's like, something's different here. Pup's not here. The dog's not here, right?
Yeah.
And so it goes to those 7 questions that are in the book, the big questions that we have, and this concept of trustless, right? And how we're all trying to navigate how many questions in life, but these 7 big ones kind of frame out most of the religions and the worldviews. So I'm coming down the stairs, and Anna looks up at me. What happens when we die, Dad? Right? She's asking about the dog, right? And I write in there that it's way more than that. I knew it. I actually think she was aware, like, something happened here and I don't understand. So I'm going to go to you, Dad, who I implicitly trust because I'm what, 5?
Yeah.
Not all 5-year-olds do trust their parents, but generally speaking, that's a natural step. So she trusts me. But what the concept here is that what I say, because I'm on her trust list, what I say is going to frame out the answer to this question on death, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so those 4 examples that we've talked about in the other videos, monism, materialism, idealism, and theism, I framed them out in there. But like the heart of that is that if Anna hears me say, we're like, Pup's done. It's matter. We're going to bury her. She's just going to become dirt. That's right. And that's going to happen to you at some point.
Yeah.
That toy runs out of batteries. Either it's broken and we fix it, or we replace the batteries, because it's all about batteries. It's just animation. she she's not, I don't know what a 5-year-old actually comprehends,
Yeah.
but for me to say that and for her to like, oh, that's life and death, on and off switch, like the
Yeah.
lights, that does something to her psyche. We talk to any of the psychologists and anybody that's going to do something to her psyche, and it's going to have authority because she trusts me, right? So the concept there hopefully highlights the whole concept of what we're doing here. But
Yeah.
what I think is intriguing, that's not necessarily in the book right here, it bumps into it later, is I've talked to, like,
Hey, Matt, just you repeat that. Your audio. Oh,
what happened?
maybe it's me actually.
Oh,
Uh, hold on. Let me do a little video, little internet. It was me. So I think it's probably fine. Your audio clicked out, but we should probably back up to what you just said.
that's fine. I,
Um,
but
this is so you can edit it and not have that. Hold on. Let me fix my situation though here. Sorry. Yeah, you had like a good 6 words of just hand motion and silence. All right, I think we're back. So yeah, so just rewind to what you started to say.
well, and actually, you just rephrase that. It builds up to, I'm a dad with a daughter answering that question for her, right? What's intriguing to me is there's dads all over the world doing it in that moment, in different living rooms or outside or under a tree somewhere. There's
Yeah.
moms, we're all doing this for, and there's 5-year-olds who are all asking this question. What happens
Yeah.
when we die? 7-year-olds, there's 35-year-olds, there's 88-year-olds asking this question. What happens when we die, right?
Yeah.
And so where do we turn to get that answer? But what I was about to say there is that I think is intriguing is world famous atheist comes to my classroom, right? And he talks to the students about the trust list and all that. And when I was doing breakfast with him before he, spent the day at this school, I asked him some of these questions. I said, he was like, yeah, my wife's pregnant. We're all excited. I'm like, great. So what will you be telling your 5-year-old if they ask this question that my daughter asked? And what's so intriguing is like what is in the book is what he was going to tell her. Like, so there's this real person who's going to tell his children, I mean, she's probably 5 or 6 right now, he or she, that when you die, it's done. Like there's
Yeah.
no afterlife, there's no heaven, there's no hell, there's no loving God to have a relationship, nothing like that, right? The other intriguing thing though is a few years earlier, I was at the Theosophical Society right downtown Wheaton here, and I asked them, what do you tell kids about death? Because they have kids programs at the Theosophical Society, and they do the whole circle of life thing, and how our bodies become part of the earth, and they did what's in there. Like, so I know these people. I will say this: I haven't asked a lot of Buddhists about their children, but I've had plenty of conversations with real Buddhists. I just haven't asked that question.
Yeah.
A hardcore Buddhist is going to talk about, you know, they're going to have to answer the question of becoming one with the one, on the journey, reincarnation or not, but they're going to have an answer about death that doesn't involve a personal relationship with a God, or doesn't involve relational connection after death. You're either absorbed into that perfection that's out there, or not.
Yeah.
The concept here is that those are like, this is not universalism here. This is not pluralism here. Those are very clear, distinct lines on a very basic question, right?
Yeah.
What I
Yeah.
want to do is be able to talk to my daughter about that, but then we were just talking about our kids going off to school. And when they're in a classroom with a bunch of other kids who are they're interacting with, and the hamster dies, or, or grandma dies, or they have, I mean, think of this past year, all the death in all these homes with COVID and so much more. What are these kids? How are they processing that answer? So there's the concept, right? But the tool then comes into doing that in a loving and a conversational way. And by remembering that it's all trust, then my Anna can have someone at school or on the playground or on a walk give a different answer to what happens when their dog dies than my daughter. And we can talk about those differences, talk about the consequences, and she can unashamedly believe that God is in control of that. While her other friend says, oh, well, when, in our home, when it's done, we're done. So we're going to make the most out of the life that we have. We're not really,
Yeah.
They can talk about that and in a loving, kind way and be different.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe I was too much, but
No, that's great. It's a great frame and a great way to think about it. I mean, that's the whole, there's a couple of things that are intriguing. Like if you can't explain it to a kid, you probably don't understand it yourself. But I think one of the things, and so again, like these are only going to be interesting if these are slightly provocative. So I'm gonna attempt to be provocative, and I think provocative is a matter of your worldview, right? So this is going to be provocative to some, it's going to be boring to others. so
that's just true all the time, let's be honest.
yeah, it's all a matter of where you sit on the spectrum, isn't it? So the question is, so let's make it more personal. So it's not Pup. Was that the dog? Which dog was it? It was Pup.
It was Pup. Yeah, it was sweet Pup.
Man, I remember you towing Pup around in the bike carrier, and I was like, Matt Dominguez is a good person. That's what I thought when I saw that. But let's make it more personal. It's Jack. And not only is it Jack, it's my family's at the funeral. So my kids are there. They're thinking about this. So for the first one, for idealism, whatever Jack was has been absorbed into the bigger picture. And so whatever Jack became is an absorption. Jack is effectively done. He's merged. What's left is the memory of Jack. So the artifacts of Jack, the Jack that exists in my children's minds, the dad that took them mountain biking.
The idea of Jack, idealism, the idea of you will still exist, right?
Yeah.
And then any artifacts that are material will remain as long as the material stays connected.
Yeah. Yes. So the idea of Jack lives in the world, and probably only for a short amount of time for most human beings, right? Like, to be honest with you, most of us don't make it into the world in any tangible way, shape, or form, right? Which is I guess, so we went from like what happens when you die to the other, just pivoted to like, well, what's the meaning of life? So anyways, the first one, Jack is gone. What's left of Jack is really just the tangible markings of him in the world, either in someone's ideas or thoughts about Jack, which are accurate or not accurate, and then this body that somebody has to do something with, and then maybe some material possessions. So that one feels pretty true to me. It feels pretty true. I mean, like, that's what happens. I go away. I'm left behind in the memories of people and in some possessions and in this mortal shell, right? So then the next one is, so that was idealism. Yeah.
I think what you just mentioned is a really important aspect of this whole thing. I think this would be the advantage for people if they're willing to listen to some of these, is if you're reading the book, I drop hints about that, but it is kind of like a journey of discovery to find out later that, yeah, that is true. Those are the true ideal. Those things happen if I'm going to land on religious theism later, Christian theism later, that's all still true. We just add on other things to those truths.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but if that's the only thing that's true, then Jack is basically gone. There isn't anything else, because the only thing that exists after you die is God. And God is good, beautiful, and true. So whatever is good, beautiful, and true about Jack, which we will celebrate at your funeral, is absorbed back into God from where it came.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but I would also say at that same funeral when my mom goes, well, Jack's just not here anymore. Like so we'll pivot. She's reduced me to, well, what do you mean Jack's not here anymore? Like, so the next one is materialism, right? So basically also true. The electricity, wherever the source of that electricity is and was, that kept my heart going, is no longer.
Yep.
It's gone. So the thing that enlivened my body is gone, and therefore I'm dead. that's and it doesn't explain what happens except to explain that it has happened. It's happened. Yeah, it's no happened. Yeah, there's no, the matter, the air in his lungs, the electricity, that whatever that caused that heart in his chest to beat consistently over time for all those years, that allowed him to stay vertical, and that allowed his brain to talk to his heart. All those mysterious things really do just boil down to the fact that they aren't working any longer, and that's why he's no longer here.
And so we're at your funeral, and what we could do if we were to choose honor here, man, that chemical conglomeration we called Jack, that was fueled by electricity, was really cool. Like, that never existed before. That combination will never exist again.
Never exist again.
We made the most of it, and we all got to participate in that in small and large ways. And you were aware of it for how many years? That is life. We celebrate that. But but now it's done. Like, it's done.
But now it's done.
Yeah, and a 5-year-old will get that. I think Anna got that. The dog does not have electricity anymore. And she's like, oh, so the legs don't move and the tongue doesn't. Yeah, so it just doesn't work anymore. And that's where we go and we grab the defibrillator with humans, like, more electricity. Oh, here we go. We're going again.
Yeah.
Or not.
Put some juice in there. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, so I would just say that, so I love that you framed it that way, which you can basically say, like, and it's hard. So the funny thing is that I think we would say that's miraculous. Like, that assembly of atoms and that electricity for that amount of time is miraculous. But I think there would be a fair number of people who say that's not miraculous at all. That's what it is. And look around. It's pretty common. Yeah, it just is. Which, so again, what I will say is feels kind of true.
There's a lot of truth in that, because, ready, existentially, is it happening for us right now? As far as we are aware, yeah. So there you go. Let's not negate that. Let's not negate that. Like, it's true.
As far as we know. Yeah, I mean, but the basic science of it is true. That I am an electric being. How that works is still continues to be somewhat mysterious, but not that mysterious. It's a system. The system works when all the components work, just like a car works. It's like a system. All feels very true to me. And if my heart outlasts my liver, well, that's bad. And if my heart outlasts my knees, that's sad. It's just like there's all these things work together to make us who we are, but like ultimately the ability to walk around the earth is primarily electric. And it just feels pretty right and true. It doesn't answer the question what happens after death, but it does kind of lean into what is death. And death is as you say, the battery running out. So then the third one is, let's go do something with this body. Now you're breaking up a little bit. Is that just me, or are you hearing that too? There you are. So anyway, back to where we were. And just so you know, I haven't even gotten to the provocative part yet, Matt. Well, this is all. So the provocative part's coming. So the first one is idealism. my kids are at the funeral. Hopefully they're sad. Maybe not. Maybe they've got a great perspective on life and they're grateful. Maybe it's both. The second one, materialism. Third one, what do you, actually is it?
Monism.
Monism. Okay. So in that one, that's the circle of life. That's the, so essentially, it, when expressed that way, it feels very similar to the first one, which is like there's this big thing, and we've before, Jack has joined it, man. He's still in it, actually. That's interesting. Yeah.
The difference.
That's the difference. So the first one, Jack has ceased to exist.
You escape out of it.
The idea of Jack still exists, but Jack's gone.
Jack's gone.
The second one, Jack's gone. Third one, Jack's still around in a new form.
You've shape shifted.
Depending on where you bury him and how you bury him, next year he appears as corn, maybe. But also feels pretty true. So in the first one, Jack is an idea.
Yes. Which
feels true. The idea of Jack is, I mean, my name's abstract. Your memory of me is different than my mom's memory of me is different. It's just this thing. It's an abstract set of thoughts and feelings and opinions and material objects. I've left some paintings behind, but essentially Jack is an idea. The second one, Jack is a body. The third one, Jack is part of a larger system.
Yep. One big, huge system
that expands it all the way to the edges of the universe. Like there's no, and it's all like connected.
You're part of that.
I'm part of that. All of those feel true. Jack is an idea. Jack is a body. Jack is part of the larger system. All those are true. Theism says Jack is a known, loved, depending on which theism you're talking about.
Depend on your theism.
So we'll take that one out. Jack is an intentional act of another being that wants to be in relationship with Jack. Made Jack for a reason.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe it's a shallow relationship. Maybe it's a robust relationship.
Servitude, love. There's all these different friendship. There's all these different relationships that are available, and that's why I think there's so many denominations out there, right?
Yeah.
Religions out there.
Yeah.
What's your relationship with this God who made all of us?
Yeah. So Jack is an idea. Check. Jack is a body. Check. Jack is part of a larger system. Check. Jack is a intentional creation of an unseen being. That one feels like a story to me.
Yeah.
It feels like a story.
Yeah. I think it is a story. That's what Tolkien told Lewis. Lewis was like, it's a myth, it's a story. And Tolkien's like, yep, you're right. It's a big mythical story, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, true. So in what way? Like, it's true that I have a body. It's true that I am an idea. It's true that I'm part of, I mean, in as much as we can figure out, it's true that I'm part of a larger system. How is it a truth that I am? So let's get to Christian theism, because that's the one you and I practice. So let's not dance around it. Let's narrow it down for the sake of conversation. How is it true that I am a known, loved, intentionally created being by God? How is that true, Matt? It doesn't seem true in the same way that the other ones are. It seems like a story. It seems like a fantastic story at a funeral.
Yeah.
Because again, the other really great thing about it is, so first one, my children will likely not see me again. The second one, my children will
they won't see you again because you don't exist. They can't see you again.
Yeah, but what we don't know is what it means when we all join the one. Like, what will that be though?
But when joining the one means there's only what?
Yeah.
one.
Well,
There's
so
no,
we will be reunited in the one.
we're all absorbed into one. There's no
Yeah, yeah.
relationship. So that's the key. I think here's the key.
Yeah.
I'm interrupting you because that's the key. In that there's no relationship. So they can't have a relationship with Jack afterwards. Jack's gone.
They will not be reunited with Dad.
No.
Yeah. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
In the second one, it's definitely over.
Yeah, it's done. That's done.
Yeah, you got what you got, and that was 60 years, 74 years, 12 years. That's what it was.
Yeah.
The third one is, you know, what do they think about Dad at the funeral at that point? Are they going to see Dad again?
Well, can we ever recreate this moment with what's formed in you right now?
Well, but Simba looks at the clouds and he sees Dad.
Yeah.
Right? He's in whatever way the more mature he gets, the more enlightened he gets, the more he sees that Dad is still
Everywhere.
there.
Yes.
Dad is everywhere.
But it's not this. It's not.
Yeah.
There's always some type of progression in monism. It's an unfolding, it's an unraveling, it's a flow, it's something. There's nothing stagnant there, and you can't go back to what you had before. So there's always this unfolding. Now we're going to say,
hold on. Can I ask you a question? And this is a real question. So that idea that in Lion King, and maybe I don't know Lion King well enough, so if I misrepresent Lion King, you tell me too. But also like Wakanda, like this idea that there are Star Wars.
Star Wars, the best one.
Is Star Wars monism?
Totally.
Okay. So
that's
Luke,
that's why that 8th movie got so much flack, is because Luke was like, hello, it's all connected. And everybody's like, oh no, you know, we wanted to keep all the polarity, and he's like, there isn't any. Anyway,
so that idea that you're in all those movies, there is a ghosty consciousness of those beings. That's true to monism? Or is that bad monism? That's bad monism.
Bad monism.
So the idea that Jack would look at a sunset or go on a fishing trip and feel Dad is good monism.
Feel Dad.
The idea that Dad would show up as a ghosty figure with all my uncles in another fishing boat, isn't that bad? And I'm not trying to make fun. I'm literally literally figuring this out right now. So that's bad monism.
It's bad monism because there's entity. There's like this continued entity after they died, when really it's this morphing into something new.
Yeah. So
there can't be something other.
I mean, I hear a lot of people say things that feel very true to me that are more in line with monism, which would be when I'm in the forest, I feel my dad. Feel. There is an experience, because sometimes I'm in the mall, I don't feel Dad. I'm here, I feel Dad. Those are two separate experiences.
Yeah.
They're both real and valid, but it's not like Dad materializes and we have a conversation in the form of like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Not monism. No, that's monism. That's just kind of it's
blended, yeah.
Which is blended monism, which is where this is all going, right? Because pure monism is that there's no other. So in order for Dad to show up again later, there has to be a sense of identity in other.
Yeah.
That's the difference at the funeral, is that Jack is still Jack after death because of your identity as Jack. You haven't become God. You don't stop existing. You don't shift into some other part of God. There's still Jack.
Yeah.
It's just a different, you don't have your body anymore, that body, you have a new one, or whatever the story is going to tell you, whatever you're trusting is going to happen.
I mean, so again, lots and lots and lots of resonance with monism.
Yeah.
I wish we all understood better that we are part of a system, and that there's really actually there's some differences between Matt and Jack, but there really isn't.
No.
We're all matter and energy. We're both human beings. We're not trees. But yeah, so anyways, very interesting. Okay, so
take that a step further, even, especially considering our current culture. Not only is there similarities between us and connection between us, but if we go with Christian theism, we go with the whole Jesus thing, that means the Holy Spirit is in you and me. It's the same Holy Spirit, and it's not a bunch of little Holy Spirits. Like we
interesting.
actually are connected by God. But what monism says is that you are God. That's what's connecting you. And what theism allows for is that we're connected through God. God connects us, in us and through us. He's in all things and through all things and holds all things together. But I'm not God and I'm not Jack. That's the distinction piece. And there's truth to that, right? You're you. I'm me. You're not.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
I'm not God. I know I'm not God.
As far as we know. Yeah.
As far as we know. As far as we know.
It's very interesting. So what I was gonna say though is like those first three feel like pretty accurate to experience. The fourth one feels like a story.
Yeah.
And so and I know we're getting ready to go to suicide of thought. And the reason it feels like a story is, one, it feels nice. It feels nice to know. It feels like it fills in. To me, it feels like a superseding story because Jack is a body. Check. I'm not just a body.
Yeah.
Jack is an idea. Absolutely.
Totally.
Not just an idea. Jack is part of a system. But Jack seems at times to work at odds with that system.
Yep.
So like that fourth one of like, anyways, it's all very interesting. So like, I guess my first question is, how do you feel about the idea that it is a story? And then how would you feel is it, so there's two ways to go. One, it's nice, it's a story. And you seem to be agreeing with that.
Oh yeah.
But if I were to say it's just a story, so one word different, how's that feel?
Well, I like both of them. They both feel good on one level. Just seems diminutive, like, oh, it's just a story. Well, what else would it be?
Well, so what I mean by that is the other three are true. They're pieces of it that
those are all stories too, Jack.
No, we're not there yet, Matt. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. That's the next chapter. This one feels like a thing that got created to fill in the gaps in the other ones.
Okay. So
that's what I mean by story. A story is written by someone.
Yeah.
This is a story that has been written by a section of Christian history that helps us make sense of the world, which again, I'm all for.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with making sense of the world in a way that lets you go forward.
So a story or just a story, or like only a story.
Or as you might be saying, you're saying the story.
The story.
So
I think
there's what is, all right, English teacher.
You said they're all true. You said they're all true. The first one has truth, the second one has truth, the third one has truth, and the fourth one is like, yes, and it's the story. That's true too.
The story. Yep. Okay. Is that how you deal with that? So if you're an English teacher, I've forgotten. So there's a story.
The story.
There's just a story. And then there's the story.
Yeah.
You seem to be a the story guy. Am I making this water muddy? Why do you say it's the story?
Well, Tolkien is fantastic with this, because do we make stories? Do you and I make stories? Do authors make stories? Do we go to the movies? We just talked about Star Wars and Avatar and all those. Those are all stories, right? Are those true? Or are those just a story? Does that make sense? So
yeah,
this is what drew me into literature originally. It's like, wait, we're in a story.
Yeah.
We all love stories because we're in a story. Are we in a story? Are we in the story? are we, so this is the fun of philosophy,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
are you and I just characters and we got no autonomy? Or imagine what it's like for Frodo to talk to Tolkien. Should I take the ring, Tolkien? And Tolkien's like, yeah, Frodo, you should take the ring. Or what about all the characters who are oblivious that there is an author in the story, and so they're just letting the author write the story, or they think that they're writing their own story, or like, all those are questions, right? Those are all questions, and we're trying to figure out what we trust, right?
Yeah.
So I would put it back on you. What are the consequences of trusting that it's not the story, that it's just a story, or what our world is really trying to, I would say what our world's trying to embrace fully, which is chapter 4, suicide thought. There only is everybody's little individual story. There's not an
Yeah.
overarching story that with a God who's author and incorporating all of us into it. You just have your own little story and you're the author of your own little story.
Yeah.
That to me, I don't want to be mean to anybody here, but that is not very sustainable. That you are the author of your story. Like, where did you come from and how are you going to end it and who's really in control, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what I like about the story is that there is Jack and you're in it, but there's also, it explains why these other things are happening and how we're all connected, and it allows for all this others. The story concept allows for all of it. That's why Tolkien and Chesterton and Lewis liked the story concept. That's what officially reconverted Lewis. Is like, oh, yeah, because Jesus actually happened in history. Oh, yeah, got it. It's,
Yeah.
that story is the story. Yeah. I
Yeah.
know it's our story. That's right. That's the one we're in. That's right.
Yeah. So you put it back to me, and so I don't want to dodge the question.
Yeah.
I'm not, so what I would say right now is they seem really similar. And I'm not sure at this point in my life about how one is more compelling to the other.
Yeah, fair enough.
So that's, I'm willing to be convinced. That's why I love talking to you, because
Let's go.
you're pretty convincing, and which is also a good reason to believe something.
Fair enough.
The opposite of convincing is not convincing. Yeah, it's like, why would you want to not? What the opposite of hope is?
Despair.
Hope. Yeah, I'm like, I choose hope. It didn't feel like a hard choice, even though I don't want to. I default to despair, and hope's my remedy, so I'm going to choose hope. But maybe I should lean in. I don't know. But anyways, the point being, to answer your question, right now in my life, I don't see much of a distinction between saying this is just a story and saying this is the story in the way that it works out in my life.
Yeah, I respect
so that's what might be fun about this discussion, would be for you to go, hey, if you think it's just a story, then why is it any better than any? Like, we could talk about that. But like, what I'm saying is, for me, like, the splitting of the hairs is doesn't get me excited.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to discuss, because this is about, in so many ways, about philosophy. And I think also what I would say, and this is a judgment statement, is that for big mega judgment generalization, modern Christianity is not that compelling.
Yep.
And so a lot of the times when I hear you speak, it's pretty compelling. And so that's one of the things that makes you attractive to me, is that a lot of what you say, it feels compelling. And so I want to lean into that. That's got energy. It's feels better, and it feels like a potential. And I am not trying to heal modern Christianity. I'm just saying, in my life, it's not that compelling. This feels like, to me, this could be a remedy, I think, in some ways, for where we find ourselves as Christians in the world today. So I love that. I do find what you say compelling. I find it very compelling. So that's something I have to investigate further.
Well, and you know what, Jack? That's where I was before I just went all out with this journey, is it wasn't compelling to me either.
Yeah.
But then I read the Gospels and I'm like, the disciples were not bored. Jesus was really, really cool and really compelling. So when I
Yeah.
look at that, the gospel stories, I
Yeah.
look at the book of Acts, I'm like, what? They're walking on water. People are coming back to life. They have hope. They're not afraid of death. They're not afraid of
Yeah.
dying. They're offering this amazing. When you said this to me years ago, when we were talking about evangelism, right? Like, if it's not good, it's not good news, then it who wants to, like, I'm not going to go evangelize something. Here's some bad news for you. Like,
Yeah.
but that was part of what got me to, like, well, then we've got to find something that's compelling, something that's good
Yeah.
news, something that's exciting, something that's life-giving. And that's where I think when I say the story,
Yeah.
yeah, the story of what Jesus invites us into originally is really compelling for me. And that's all I'm simply trying to convey.
Yeah.
I sometimes get a little flack for not inviting people into, well, here's, come on into Christianity. Maybe some aspect of that, but really I'm like, get to know this Jesus guy, get to know a God who loves you, and get to know this big, massive story that is way bigger than modern Western
Yeah.
Christian, way bigger. And that there's lots of people. Part of me wants to say, maybe it should. Because if they think they've got it all packaged and figured out, honestly, that's not very compelling then, because we're on this planet in this universe and it's huge. God is so big. I want to be a part of a story that's that big, it's like that exciting and compelling. I want to be, you said this to me once too. Actually, maybe I shouldn't reference it. You told me. Sorry.
We can quote each other. I think
Okay. But
we
I
can't
like
quote other people.
But what I like about what you said to me one day was like, I want to believe in something that's too good to be true. Like, it's just, that's what I want to believe in, something that's so compelling.
Yeah.
I think that's what intrigues me about what Tolkien and Chesterton and Lewis are kind of saying. Like, they feel like they found that, and they found it in this narrative of Christ.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the biblical narrative. Not, I mean, yes, they are Christians, but really they found it in the story of Christ.
The story of Christ. Yeah. Yeah. And I would say there's certainly a lot of space within Christianity to discuss whether it's literal or archetypical. Archetypical, is that the word?
Yeah.
But either way, so one of the things the whole thing to me about it is like, evangelism, not evangelism. All I can say is I am not evangelical. I don't evangelize, and the meaning in the sense of like, I am not evangelizing at any pace, right? Like I eat more meals than I evangelize. I do more sit-ups, which is not very many, than I evangelize. I do everything more than I evangelize. So that tells me that I have not stumbled upon the story.
Yeah.
And so I think part of someone asked me recently, like, where are you with God? And I have been thinking about that a lot lately. And one of the things I would say is that a lot of what I'm trying to do is sort through all that I was given to come to something that feels compelling, because a lot of what I was given was not particularly compelling.
But think about that. You are an evangelist. You tell me about authors. You tell me about movies. You tell me about podcasts. You tell me about good things.
Yes.
You tell me about things that are beneficial for my life. You tell me about cool people that you've met. You tell me about your family. So you do tell those stories, and you invite me into really great things. And part of who I am is because you have given me some wonderful things on my journey, people and experiences and conversations. So you are an evangelist. But what I hear you saying is that to evangelize about what you were handed in regards to the package of modern Western evangelicalism, it's hard to evangelize that because
Yeah.
there's so many other things. And so this is where I tell my students, like, if that's your version of Christianity, you just need to go to the recycle bin and chuck it in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And we've got to get to a place where we are understanding that this story, the story, is the best story, and
Yes.
living is the best way to live it. And it's so life-giving and so compelling and so fulfilling that eventually you don't even, you're not even thinking about evangelism because you just, it's just
Yeah. Yeah.
it's another good
Yeah.
thing that you're sharing with people. It's the best restaurant, and it's the best movie, and it's the best people, and it's all this best stuff that you want to get as many people connected to as possible.
Yeah.
After that's happening, you can realize, oh, I've been evangelizing. Look at that. Right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Jesus said, just go tell the good news. And then he's like, and go heal people and help people and love people. And that's the story. It's an awesome
Yeah.
story. We just
Yeah.
we're not doing it.
Yeah. And that when I use that term, I mean very strictly the like
I know.
evangelical Protestantism is defined by one, the authority of scripture, two, a point and moment of conversion, three, the death of Christ being the payment for sins, and four, the obligation to tell that story. That to me, those are the four pillars of evangelical Protestantism, and I'm 1 for 4 on that list. So all I can do is say, and I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm saying Jack is not that because he's not demonstrating those things. So I have to look at that. But I do appreciate what you're saying, which is like, I feel like I am very much happy to be alive, and I find life very rich, and I love sharing what I've learned, and I love learning from other people. So I want to ask you another question. I didn't plan on this, but you made me think of it. So the other day I was talking with someone, and they were sharing about how important for them the idea of Imago Dei is, in terms of the idea that you might want to wring someone's neck, but you can't. You restrain yourself because you understand that that person, as confusing as it is for you, is made in the image of God, just like you are. And I just thought that was interesting. We didn't have a lot of time to dive into it, but my question is like, to that person was, well, how is that different than saying we're all human? Like back to monism. If I see these separations between me and you, then I likely am going to at some point wring your neck, physically or metaphorically. When I allow myself to stop and go, look, there's Matt and Jack are the same. And so when I wring Matt's neck, I'm wringing Jack's neck. That to me is monism in a way that's very powerful and cool.
It's helpful.
And so the concept of Imago Dei, it was interesting. She made me think when she brought it up, because I was like, because I've certainly, some of my views on abortion have been informed by that.
Yeah, that's a powerful connection.
But anyways, what are your thoughts about that? Like, so that's part of the story. Yeah, a big part of the story is made in the image of God. And does that help you?
That's all right there then. So now, look, there it is. And so inadvertently, we keep hitting those 7 questions. We started with, pup, what happens when you die, right? But now we just hit, what's a human being? And what do we do with morality by wringing a human being's neck, right?
Yeah.
But see, then it's all there. And this is the tool. So we did the concept. So here's the tool now. And the tool is, okay, I want to wring this person's neck. What do I trust? What's a human being? What is God? What does image of God mean? And I'm going down my trust list. And the truth be told, if you're a hardcore materialist, what's the problem with wringing someone's neck?
Nothing.
They're like hardcore.
Yeah, no, I am advancing the species.
yeah, you're advancing the species and you're taking the batteries out of a chunk of dirt. Like there is
Yeah.
no moral implication, and they're not
Right.
going to go to hell, and there's no God who's going to punish you. So
Yeah.
boom, like you start realizing that's the tool. That's
Yeah.
the tool. And so then I say, if you're not going to go with image of God, that not you, but I'm like to this person, if you're not going to go image of God, the consequences are huge. If you are
It's
trying,
actually it is actually me. She was the one advocating for image of God. I was the one like, I don't know.
well, okay, but so there it is. There it is. But so then if we're not doing that, so then if we are monism and we wring someone's neck, they're not going to hell. There's no objective God authority in the world because God is the world and you're part of it. So it's like trimming your fingernails or cutting your hair, or it's just like it's all going around. It's all getting recycled. When a pepper dies, if I take a pepper, a really good
Yeah.
pepper, off the stalk of the plant, and I just throw it in the compost, is there
Yeah.
actually really a big deal there? No, it's just going to turn back into dirt and get
Yeah.
another. It's all
It's
going
got
around.
seeds. The seeds will be reborn.
The one where there's a little bit of implication would be as if you wring someone's neck as a Buddhist, but sorry, awkward pause. A Buddhist would never do that because they're pacifists, right? Because they're
Yeah.
trying to be perfect, they're trying to, but if you were like, if you're in idealism and you do that, if there is consequence for your behavior to become one with God, then does God say wringing necks is bad? Then you're not going to do it. But the image of God there is, what are you, what the neck is, the body's just going to dissolve anyway. So you can, that's why Obi-Wan, which is not idealism, but there's that way, like, you can kill me, it's just my body, I'm going to continue. So in monism, it's just going to continue spiritually. With Buddhism, if we wring someone's neck, technically speaking, you're just getting rid of their body and the spiritual continues. So do you have to even be afraid of it there? That's morally complex depending on your religious affiliation underneath idealism.
Yeah.
That's kind of strange too, because the body doesn't matter. It's only the spiritual. So
Yeah.
wringing the neck is no big deal. So I don't know if this is helpful to parse through that in regards to the tool, but what are the consequences if we're not the image of God? If we are image of God, well, yeah, what does that mean? And why would I presume to be able to do anything against you when neither of
Yeah.
us are God and you are in God's image as I am? And that could have been really helpful for
Yeah.
more people to trust that in the past 18 months as we
Yeah.
try to navigate, right? Either racial issues and issues between, you know, value in regards to men and women and children and elderly, like all that stuff. If it's not image of God, where do we derive value? Where are the standards?
Yeah.
It's all connected there. And so the question is bigger than just wringing the neck, right?
Yeah.
But also what I trust will potentially drive my behavior there, or at least how I feel after doing it, you know, like, or wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's motive. I mean, it's so faceted. One is there's motivation. Two, there's meaning, and three, there's consequences, right? So you can ask that question across all three.
That's
And
awesome.
I you know, and within idealism, I can see, I can see a path to a consequence that is not beneficial to me. So I'm making a choice to my benefit, in spite of what I would want to do.
It's helping me get closer to being absorbed into God and being
Yeah.
God forever. Okay.
Materialism, I feel like maybe we need to do it more. Like we should, like the whole point is to advance the species. And so,
Well, but real quick, what's the point of that?
well, I mean, the point being is like, well, if you take out God, that becomes the point.
There
That's
is,
what I would say.
you just do whatever you
Well,
want.
I don't know. It's so whether it's a point or whether it's an urge, we certainly have an urge to
Fair enough.
improvement,
Let's
right?
call
So
that then. Let's call it
yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's an urge. That's another thing that intrigues me about human beings is like there is self-preservation and there is improvement, and those things are almost always at odds. And yet, as beings, we do continue to vacillate back and forth and move what seems to be forward. I always laugh like the Andrew Yang, the guy who ran for president, his bumper sticker said, "Not right, not left, forward." And I was like, that does not work philosophically, Andrew Yang, sir. We need to talk. I love the message of that bumper sticker, but that man is intellectually flawed, sir.
That's what Lewis and Tolkien, they have given us that on a platter.
Yeah.
Anyone who's willing to embrace mere Christianity, orthodoxy, everlasting man, and Tolkien's confrontation of that through his stories, without some type of objective standard. There is no forward, there is no right, there is no left, there is no purpose, there is nothing. So yeah, that's an essential component to materialistic worldview.
Yeah.
That without that, story, all of it there's a lot hanging in the balance by only going with materialism, right? As all the truth that it contains.
Yeah, man. See, Matt, this makes me think a little bit about so one, I fully agree with you, Margot's suicide thought, and I fully agree with you in saying it's all story. But I wonder if there's not something lost in saying, it's a bit of a postmodern stance to say it's all story, by the way, buddy.
Oh, I know.
What I think I need to think about is, based on this discussion today and here's what happened when I read chapter 3. I go, true. Idealism, true. Materialism, true. Monism, true. Theism, story. That's what I did. That's what my brain did when I read that. And so what I may be saying here to myself as I think out loud is, by you saying story, they're all story, you're putting them all on level playing ground, which is a great place to be. But it might be that story is just as important as not story. So I totally get how this doesn't work for you, but someone saying no, we want science. And I'm like, all right, cool, science, but also story. And not to elevate one over the other. And even I always get irritated when people, I hear it a lot these days, where it's well, God is just the space for what science has not figured out yet. I'm like, okay, fine. Maybe. But I'm just why are we opposing these two forces? They're this.
Isn't that the tension that we're bumping up to? You, because you're saying yes, 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 story, and then I'm like, story, yes. So that's yes, 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 yes. I think that is the concept and the tool. That's chapter 3. On one hand, is if you read that chapter and that's where you land, that's kind of what I was hoping, because then you realize later what the worldviews of what the trust lists have done is we're like, well, it's only materialism, and it's only monism, or it's only idealism, or it's only story, it's only religious theism. That to me is the point. That's what's happened. Chesterton says we've fractured it all versus
that's the pieces.
That's the pieces. But you have to get to part 3 to unveil that. And I think for some people it's hard to continue in that tension, right? As somebody well, just tell us it at the beginning. I'm like, well, I could. Maybe I don't want to use the word should, because I've done that before. And when we just well, here it is, then you're not sitting in the tension long enough, honestly.
Yeah.
We want to sit in that tension, but no, there's truth over there. But there's truth over here. And I can't just deny the materialist point, and I can't deny that. And you're left with wait a second, all these have some truth in it. what do I do with that? And you go, exactly. What you
Yeah.
do with that is that let's get all the lights on. Let's have them all work together. But here's the key, is it's not that there's just one mushy truth that blends them all together. It's
Right. Yeah.
science, it's science and story. It's matter and spirit. It's these
Yeah.
paradoxical truths that are all working together. It's north, south, east, and west. And north is not south.
Right.
Right is not left. Although
Yeah.
that's groups, it's opposite. They're
Yeah.
they're different. They're connected. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're different. I'm connected to you, but I'm not you. And that's where I want them all to be working together in the chandelier metaphor and in the painting metaphor. And the problem, I think the tension should hit when you're like, yeah, there's truth in materialism. There is. But what if that's all you believed in? What do you lose?
Yes.
Oh, I lose story. Oh, I lose meaning. Oh, I lose morality. Whoa. Wait, we do lose things here. So that was the point of the Anna story, is if we say, yep, electricity's gone and the dog's done. True. But if that's it, wait, we lose something, don't we? If that's the only thing that is true. If that is the
Yeah.
only truth, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
Yeah. What's lost when you choose a more narrow? Yeah.
and yeah,
Um.
but the key
Yeah.
is that it's not some pluralism saying, well, they're all true independently of each other as themselves. No, no, no. They all carry truth that can work together to create that bigger story, the bigger truth.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. I think that's where I get triggered though, as a Christian, is like I was raised that
yeah.
I was raised that mine was the truth.
Yeah, you were raised that yours was the truth at the expense of the other truths that are undeniable that other people carry.
Yeah.
So how
And
about
that's like I don't know, you read that um he's not Christian, so I think it's okay. This is the James Elkins thing, that chapter on developing a mature spirituality. Did you?
I haven't gotten to that one yet. No.
Oh, dude, you're gonna love it.
Okay. Because
I'd be curious to hear what you think about that. Because I think he's getting at what what we're talking about.
the thing that people get, and I'll be really blunt, they get scared. The word fear. They're afraid. Wait, where are you going, Dominguez? Where are you going, Dominguez? Wait, you're going into, oh, it's all true and it's all, and then you're gonna end up with God, who's this big universalist God who just lets everybody in, doesn't matter. Like, no, 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 no. Like, A, that's not sustainable. B, that's not good news, because then evil doesn't matter when it really does. We all know it does, right? Like the 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 key is for me to be able to look someone in the eye and honor truth, right? You grew up with that story that you had the truth. The problem is that the story that you were given, and quite frankly, the one that I was handed to, was part of this narrow, select approach to. This is why it's Inklings on philosophy and worldview. I didn't even put the word religion in there, right?
Yeah.
Is I was given a religion that didn't allow for a world. I want a religion that's big enough to handle the world. For God so loved the world, all the
Yeah.
people everywhere on it. So it's got to be able to handle all the people and all the world and that whole story and the universe itself. What I was given was something that was this. The interesting part is, well, maybe I need to treat myself like I'm treating other people. How do I accept the truth that I was given, but then realize there's more
Yeah.
as well, without negating, like without flushing what I was given down the toilet? Because there's some truth there to hold
Yeah.
on to as well. But the thing that I needed to let go of was the lie that my little perspective was all of the truth.
Yeah, I think that's the again, this is so where it does get squidgy is, and why the other one is so appealing is ours is true and theirs is false.
Yeah.
I mean, you've heard false religion dropped how many times in your life? Like that's a phrase that is in our, so the I think what and then so when you start to get more mature, you maybe transition to like ours is true, but theirs is less true. which is a
Here's
softer stance, but really you're just saying they're still wrong.
which is what we did in the other one, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's the key. That's the suicide of thought issue that's coming, and that is
Yeah.
part of this is we can't the law of non-contradictions. That's why it's philosophy. Is
Yeah.
I can't have pure idealism be true independently of materialism being true at the same time because one says there's no spiritual and the other one says there's no material. Well, they can't both be completely true in isolation, right?
Yeah,
What
they're
I can
partial.
what I can allow for is that the material and the spiritual are both true. That's different, right? So that's what we're going for is this
Yeah.
bigger, expanding vision. But what I will say is though, since trusting in Allah and then trusting in Buddha and then trusting in Jesus, like Allah and Jesus are not the same.
Right.
And so then I have to pick, right?
Yeah.
If they were the same, then we wouldn't be in any, honestly, I'm going to call it mess, but there wouldn't be any of this tension because then everything would just be one big block, which honestly,
Yeah.
where we end up
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
monism is that it's all true. And we're like, sorry, monism. No, it just, when I look at the world, it can't be. You can't die and go to heaven and then die and not exist anymore. One, there, it has to be one or the other.
Yeah. The difference in their nuance.
The tool
Yeah.
is let's discuss this with honor and dignity and integrity and love and kindness and pursue this together and then look at the consequences of what we're trusting.
Yeah.
And like you said, I want to trust something that's compelling and exciting and engaging and life-giving.
Yeah. 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 Huh. All right. These are good thoughts, Matt. We gotta come back. So
We probably need to wrap it up. We're pushing almost an hour.
yeah, we do need to wrap this up. I don't know how you're gonna edit this down into usable chunks, but maybe there's 3 pieces here.
We
But
did
yeah,
we
this
had
is
a
good.
couple of followers say just let it roll, don't edit them. I'm like 90 minutes later we're just chatting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think maybe it's fine. People listen
Conversation,
to,
right?
I mean, I did that Gabor Mate uh Russell Brand podcast is like an hour and 43.
Exactly. I think they just capture the conversation, right? I think it's
I mean,
interesting though, is people who would push back on this and people who in the tradition that we grew up with, they're going to be like, wait, but is he going to say it? Is he going to say it? Is he going to say it? And yes, in the book, I say it. I think what they get frustrated with is that I'm not willing to push it harder up front, like right now. And yes, it's Jesus. He's the true
yeah,
story. And Lewis and Tolkien and Chesterton do that, and I do that. And if it's not Jesus, I would say, well, who does it better? I don't.
yeah,
I don't know anybody else who does it better with the spiritual, the material, united in the Holy Spirit, yet also distinct. Because I'm not Jesus. Like he really does it, and the chandelier, all the lights go on, and Jesus really does it. And but see, that's where I would say I'm okay dropping that in right now, because that's part of what makes the story exciting to me. That's what gives it the life, and it's not this boring whatever. Is
yeah,
look at that dude, look what he was doing. And look at his message of love, his message of forgiveness, his ubiquitous grace, his sacrifice, the death and the resurrection and the redemption of suffering and all of it. And now I'm just going to go blabber on about how cool Jesus is.
yeah,
Yeah, but see, I didn't blabber on how necessarily how cool Christianity is. I'm
yeah,
blabbering on about this dude, Jesus, and the story that
yeah,
he invites us into, which then happens to be, oh, that's the Christian story. That's right. Right. And so I don't want to like drop that in because I'm afraid of what these Christians are going to think about me and you in our conversations. I've already been dealing with that with 25 years, right?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. I have it. There's a comedian that I like, and he uses a phrase that really resonates to me, which is like, he's like, I'm Jesus leaning. I'm Jesus leaning. And like that feels very accurate
yeah,
to me. I'm Jesus leaning.
leaning.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm leaning in that direction, and I'm trying to parse out all the other things that are so incredibly distracting.
They are. They
Yeah.
really. I would even add another word there: destructive.
Yeah.
They're distracting, but I'm trying to parse out stuff that's just destructive. Like,
Well, to stick with the metaphor, Matt, is like, look, so the pieces were torn. Are you trying to put them back together? Or are you like what I so just when you say destructive, there are people that are just like, no, wait a minute. They're literally, their life's work is to continue to tear apart.
See, and that's what they did with Jesus's body, and that was Chesterton's quote. And yes, I'm trying to piece it back together. And if people are like, well, but wait a second, you're combining all these things, and I'm like, when we piece it all back together, we're putting the arm back on Jesus and the leg back on Jesus, and we're filling in the hole where we stabbed him, nailed him to a cross. We're piecing back the truth, which is Jesus. But we've ripped up
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, I'm okay with that. Let's piece it all back together. And guess what we're gonna find? Oh, it's Jesus. He actually does carry all of this, and that's his message. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
The irony is that when William Wordsworth says, we murder to dissect. When we try to pull together to figure out what's going on inside of a cat, and we cut it open and we pull it out and we're dissecting the cat, and that's really powerful and really cool. At the end, there's no more cat.
Yeah, the cat. It's not a good story for the cat.
No. But we learned a lot about cats. So I think we've done a ton of dissecting of Christianity and Jesus and all this theology and doctrine. We pulled it all apart to look at it all, and we've learned all a whole bunch. Let's put it back together and let's let him be alive and walk around, and we're in the story, and right, like that's.
Yeah.
Remember, our original metaphor was, instead of using a painting, we were going to use a little Jesus doll, and how it got ripped apart, and then we realized that's just traumatic. It doesn't work.
Yes.
But I love how it's coming
real
back to
trouble.
my mind, is that if materialism is carrying truth, it's like holding Jesus's arm. You got God's arm. I'm not going to negate that it's God's arm. It's still his arm.
Yeah.
Well, let's get the other arm. Let's get the head. Let's get the other legs. And idealism has a leg, and monism has the torso that's kind of connecting the head, and then the head, the metaphor falls apart. But there's something about the fact, like, if it's Jesus's arm, let's at least honor that. But let's also call it an arm. It's not not the body.
Yeah, and I guess it's funny when you say that, as like when I my reductionist, I was really reductionist when I was like, I reduced idealism to Jack is an idea. I reduced materialism to, and materialism is probably fine being reduced to that, but the other ones do carry religions with them. Yeah. And so, in my picture, I think the thing I'm getting comfortable with is like, those are all true. And then the thing that fills in is the story.
Yes, the story.
It's the glue.
It's the thread. It's the glue.
It's also the pathway. It's like the ability for us to make connections. It's like the neuro linguistic system.
I would agree.
All right. Okay. I have to get off here.
I do too.
Good talking to you.
So great, Jack. Thanks, bro.
Yeah, let me know when this is ready. This would be fun. I think we should just call this one What Happens When You Die.
Yeah. What happens when you die?
What happens when you die?
How do you get
the other thing too, now I'm going to go pick it back up, because Marilyn Robinson, at the beginning of The Givenness of Things, I don't know if you've read that. It's super dense. It's really good. It's essays.
Yeah.
Her big criticism of neuroscience, which is, the latest thing. I mean, since the 70s or whatever, like and give it its credit. But she has this one sentence now I want to revisit because I'm not going to get it right. But she's like, basically, neuroscience is the one science that will not allow itself to be subservient to ontology. And I'm like, man, that sentence is a mouthful. But that's true. It's like that idea that, like, God is what we use when to describe what science is not figured out yet. Like that's that. Like
Yeah.
Eventually science will figure this all out and this God silliness will go away.
No way.
And maybe, but
Yeah, maybe. But the consequences of that are massive.
and we'll still all be, and then somehow miraculously we'll still all be running around as humans with
aware of it and aware of it all.
And we'll still
desiring meaning and desiring relationship and thinking that love is actually really love, and we'll all be deluded. We'll just continue the delusion.
We'll still be eating sugar and drinking caffeine. Like look, we're more than just our brains. There's no question. And that reductionism is what's offensive to me, is like, look, that's fine. And I know how that makes you feel safe. I totally get how that makes you feel safe. But
yeah, we hit that one earlier, because ultimately, if you really reduce it, you're not going to feel safe about it, and you're not going to feel good about it.
It just relegates out the human part.
Well, that's the abolition of man. It's C.S. Lewis, abolition of man. We just destroyed humanity, and now men without chests, right? We're just shells.
You know, that's the other thing too. You just made me think, like, this was my deep thought from this morning, is like, if you think about what percentage of our population, the American population, is basically Protestant in its thinking, which tells us that there's an angry God, a non-benevolent God who's a punisher. So a big chunk of our population is motivated by fear of punishment.
Yeah.
And then the people who have managed to jump off that boat have fallen into Darwinism.
Yeah.
So the other whatever. So if Protestant thinking is 6/8, there is 1/8 that is Darwinism.
There's basically step on that now too, because it's not sustainable.
But that's basically so a big chunk of our population is motivated by a fear of punishment. The other half is survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
So the motivation is competition. We're screwed. I mean, we're in deep trouble.
Fear and competition.
Our two motivators are fear and capitalism.
Yeah. So that's why I'm going to say, like, the story has to be bigger than those things and better.
Totally. That is a great capstone. Exactly. That cannot be it.
Can't be the story.
That cannot be it. It cannot. I mean, it could be. I'm in trouble. I'm in real trouble if that's the story, because I don't make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I don't respond well to fear as a motivator. It paralyzes me. So I'm dead. And I'm poor and dead in that scenario.
How am I going to laugh at all?
Yeah, I'm in real trouble. That's the whole thing about, like, I'm glad I did not live in the Old West, because I'm not that competitive. I have bad eyesight. I would have been the first guy dead. I would have been dead fast. But anyways.
All right.
Good talking to you.
You too, bro. Peace.
Yeah. Peace. I'll send you that podcast.
Bye.
All right. Bye.